His hand too quick to execute his wrath, perform it all, as pleased his eye and heart. At head and breast oft times he struck and hath, now at the right, now at the other part. On every side thus did he harm and scath, and oft beguile his sight with nimble art, that no defence the prince of wounds acquits, where least he thinks or fears, there most he hits. Nor ceased be, till in Gernando's breast he sheathed once or twice his furious blade. Down fell the hapless prince with death oppressed, a double way to his weak soul was made. His bloody sword the victor wiped and dressed, nor longer by the slaughtered body stayed, but sped him thence, and soon appeased hath his hate, his ire, his rancour, and his wrath. Called by the tumult, Godfrey drew him near, and there beheld a sad and rueful sight, the signs of death upon his face appear, with dust and blood his locks were loathly dight. Sighs and complaints on each side might he hear, made for the sudden death of that great knight. Amazed he asked who durst and did so much, for yet he knew not whom the fault would touch. Arnaldo, minion of the prince thus slain, augments the fault in telling it, and saith, this prince murdered for a quarrel vain, by young Rinaldo in his desperate wrath, and with that sword that should Christ's law maintain, one of Christ's champions bold he killed hath. And this he did in such a place and hour, as if he scorned your rule, despised your power. And further adds, that he deserved death by law, and law should inviolate, that none offence could greater be uneath, and yet the place the fault did aggravate. If he escapes, that mischief would take breath, and flourish bold in spite of rule and state, and that Gernando's friends would venge the wrong, although to justice that did first belong. And by that means should discord, hate, and strife raise mutinies, and what therefore ensueth. Lastly he praised the dead, and still had rife all words he thought could vengeance move or rut. Against him Tancred argued for life, with honest reasons to excuse the youth. The Duke heard all, but with such sober cheer as banished hope, and still increased fear. Great Prince, quoth Tancred, set before thine eyes Rinaldo's worth and courage what it is, how much our hope of conquest in him lies. Regard that princely house and race of his, he that correcteth every fault he spies, and judgeth all alike, doth all amiss. For faults you know are greater thought or less, as is the person's self that doth transgress. Godfredo answered him, if high and low of sovereign power alike should feel the stroke, then Tancred, ill you counsel us, I trow. If lords should know no law, as erst you spoke, how vile and base our empire were you know. If none but slaves and peasants bear the yoke, weak is the sceptre, and the power is small, that such provisos bring annexed withal. But mine was freely given ere 'twas sought, or that it lessened be, I now consent. Right well know I both when and where I ought to give condign reward and punishment, since you are all in like subjection brought, both high and low obey, and be content. This heard, Tancredi wisely stayed his words, such weight the sayings have of kings and lords. Old Raymond praised his speech, for old men think they ever wisest seem when most severe. 'Tis best, quoth he, to make these great ones shrink. The people love him whom the nobles fear. There must the rule to all disorders sink, where pardons more than punishments appear. For feeble is each kingdom, frail and weak. unless his basis be this fear I speak.